Hey everyone, if you want to skip right to the interview, skip to 6 minutes. Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 45 of the VonDubCast. Today's episode is with my buddy Gonzo. Met Gonzo in Lister Hall, like 90% of these guests. He was somebody that, as I got to know him more, it was one of those guys that you will never have a bad time around. He's always positive. His smile is infectious. His personality, his humor is off the hook. You know, you're always laughing, you're always giggling, you're always having a good time when he's around. And it's funny when you have someone like that in your life and then, you know, you go your different ways, you go get doing stuff and you forget how much they bring to you. And it was so much fun to catch up with him and just talk about some of these subjects. You know, a lot of self-accountability stuff, lots of things that I've been talking about on the podcast was right up Gonzo's alley. And he really epitomizes a lot of, the subjects that we talked about. Gonzo moved from Mexico City, where he grew up, till he was, early teens, and then moved out to Calgary at that point. And that's a big change, you know, not just the weather and the cold shock, but the culture shock. And one of the things we talked about was the culture of humor, and in Mexico, how they don't take anything too serious, and there's always that hint of humor around. In that, in lots of non-Latin communities, that is missing, and I feel that is such an important part of culture. And I think within your own little culture, you find those bits of humor, but on a grander scale, we don't really bring it to the forefront like we probably should. And I love that about listening to podcasts with comedians, getting in touch with just saying shit to say shit and trying to get a laugh. I mean, I walk through the world all the time if I'm not at work, and I'm always going for the laugh. I'm always trying to make people laugh. That's, you know, like such a huge piece of who I am. And it gets me in trouble a lot of the times. It used to get me in trouble a lot more. You know, over the years, you kind of learn when to use it, when to kind of keep it in the back pocket. And I think for many years I didn't know. And, you know, with girls, with teachers, with a million things with my parents, you know, you just never know where that line is and know where to stop, and you can push it too far. But I think with that, you kind of start getting into that mindset of, holding back when you think something's funny and just not taking those swings. And it's fun to get around people that are, you know, allow you to be comfortable enough to take whatever those swings are. And was an interesting conversation. Another aspect we got to talk about was AI and neural networks and that kind of machine learning aspect of it, which is something I'm so passionate about, but it's really hard to find people I can discuss it with. And Gonzo actually has a bit of knowledge about that. And it was super fun to get into, we didn't get too deep into it, but kind of the higher level concepts of what they are and what's coming on the horizon with those kind of technologies. I think it's something that fascinates me all the time. Like I say, I mean, every episode I talk about Lex Friedman, this episode not included in that. And it's just such a fascinating topic, and I'm so happy that I finally got to, discuss it with people. And I'm hoping that as I take this podcast further, I'll be able to talk to more people with more knowledge in that aspect, and really branch into that as a more constant topic on the podcast, because I think it's just an area that everyone in the world would be better off by having more knowledge of, and it's going to be the future, and it's kind of where things are going, and it's already the source of a lot of issues as well. Algorithms and social media, it all kind of comes back to the same ideas that they're putting in place, and there's a lot to be worried about, but a lot to be optimistic about. And that's kind of why I like Lex Friedman, because it is such a scary, daunting aspect, like AI, that could be, the end of humanity as we know it. But someone like Lex that is so optimistic about it and tries to show you the bright sides of it and really show you what it can be on a positive note. So that's kind of how we frame that discussion today. I really had a ton of fun with it. Hope you guys enjoy. If you want to help me out, you can reach out to me on social media. Like I said, I think in the last emergency episode that I released on Friday about all that stock market stuff. And if you haven't checked out that episode with Saad, that was a really fun one to discuss as well. Check that out. But I want to have an area where I can communicate with you guys and have a discussion kind of in a forum kind of sense. And I figure the Facebook page for the VonDubCast is not very public. Only people that follow that are going to see the comments on it and that. And I think if you hear something in one of these episodes that you'd want to talk about, drop a comment there. I mean, if you drop a comment anywhere, I'm probably going to respond, and I love talking to you guys. So I feel like there's a lot to be said about using social media in the right way. And I feel like comments are such a hotbed of negativity that if we start showing what a positive area can be, I think it's going to turn into something cool. So please come there if you want to, have a chat, talk about any of the subjects that come up on these podcasts, recommend anything to talk about on future podcasts, or if you just want to say hi, those type of things. I'm loving the feedback. If you can follow me on the social medias for the VonDubCast, that really helps. And then the biggest thing that helps is just telling people about it. Word of mouth is, the biggest piece of this. Like I've said a million times, I'm not really trying to expand the podcast at this point. I'm more concentrated on making sure the episodes are good and the content that comes out is good. So it really only gets shared to the same people on my social media week after week, and it's kind of a smaller pool. So every time one of you guys shares it, that's a whole new group of people that get to see it, and that's where podcast grows. So sharing it really helps, and just telling a friend, right? If you hear a couple topics on this, maybe you know somebody that's really into AI, and you say, "Hey, I listen to a podcast. It's got my buddy in it. Just check it out." Usually the people that, or if you just know people that like podcasts in general, those are the people that really understand what I'm going after, and those are the best people to recommend it to. So if you guys could do me that favor, that's all I ask. Other than that, thank you guys for listening. Really enjoy it. Having tons of fun with this, like I say, every week. And yeah, I think this is a really good episode. So enjoy, and I will see you guys in the outro. All right. Thanks for being here, Gonzo.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's going to be a good catch up. We haven't talked in quite a bit, hey?
Yeah, pretty much over a year, I think.
Yeah, at least I'd say. Fuck, it was always fun every time I'd run into. I mean, just for all the people listening, we met in Lister, just like probably 90% of the guests that have been on here so far. It seems like it's a pretty big run of Lister people, but it was a special place, and it allowed people to kind of get to know each other on a pretty intimate level. It was like it's like you had a couple thousand roommates, right? So yeah, it's probably all these people that you'd walk by usually if you didn't live together, and you would never really get past that initial story of oh, that's that one guy, oh, he's got a nice smile, and that's about all you know of him. But you got to get to those deeper levels. So it's fun to now with this, I get to reconnect with all those people and kind of show all those connections you had. It was quite the time.
Yeah, no, it was actually probably one of the best times of my life.
Yeah, me too.
It sounds. It was.
Yeah,
I remember after my first year, just like going back home to Calgary to my parents, just telling them it was the best time. It was the best year of my life so far.
Yeah.
I was just blown away. I was like, oh, I love this. I never want to graduate and stuff. And obviously things changed.
How many years did you do in Lister?
I did 3.
I did 3. Yeah, I did all 4. I couldn't leave. Once I felt it, I was hooked.
I mean, not only was it fun, but it's just convenient. I mean, it takes away all the complexity of having to figure out where to live. Like, I mean, even though you kind of have to like use the meal plan that they give you, it's easier to just use it.
Yeah.
Even if it's expensive and whatever, it just kind of lets you focus on studying.
Yeah.
Socializing, I guess.
Exactly. And it allows you to focus on whatever you want to focus on. It's up to you if you want to focus on your studies or on partying or on socialization, right? It kind of leaves it in your court. But you're so right. I think that is what a big piece of what made it so special is the convenience factor, because I barely went to class, living 5-minute walk from all my classes, right? And if I would have lived off campus and I would have had to drive, I would have failed out of school for sure. Like, I don't know if there's just people that aren't designed for it or what it was. Me and school didn't exactly mesh. I don't know if it was me or them, probably a bit of both. But if that convenience factor wasn't there, I would have never went to class, like guaranteed. Like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No, it's just a different experience, like not being at home for the first time. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was that intermediate step between, living with your parents and having them do everything for you to living on your own, but not really. It's still pretty much holding your hand the whole way.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoyed at the time. But now looking back on, some of that, I think that mindset of holding your hands all the way through university, right? I mean, it's very much shown with the Lister environment, but I think even past that, even on the actual university, it was a lot of that of kind of holding your hand and making sure everything was safe and nobody got offended and all that. And it was, really enjoyable at the time. And it created quite a special place for you kind of to, like you say, figure out whatever you want to be, be whoever you want to be. But it also doesn't prepare you as much as it probably should for the real world. Cause now you graduate and you go into something like a year like this with the pandemic and you're getting kicked in the ass left, right, and center. Man, I don't remember this. They didn't teach me. They weren't preparing me for this kind of stuff. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but I wouldn't change it for anything. I was going into it. My sister went first. So she did her first 2 years of Lister before I got there. Yeah, she was in her third year when I got there, when I was in my first year. And she loved it. She had so much fun. And she was, a shyer person in high school and kind of couldn't really shake that moniker, even when she was, even once she kind of grew out of it. Just in a small town, you kind of get stuck with those labels and that's who everybody sees you as. So it's hard. So she kind of got to break out of that when she went to Lister. And she was so excited for me to come. And I was kind of, I loved high school and I was,
Yeah,
like
just
having,
different.
it was different. So I told her, I said, like, I don't want you to be disappointed if I don't love Lister as much as you did. And it's not all it's cracked up to be. And it's so funny to talk about that now because of how immediately I was so into it. I never left. I loved it even more.
I told you.
Yeah. And she just laughs at me now, but she probably saw it coming before I did. But yeah, no, it was quite the special place. But just to back up a little bit further in that, when did you move to Canada? Because you didn't grow up in Canada, hey?
No, I didn't. I was born in Mexico City.
Right.
I moved to Canada when I was 14. So just
14.
over a decade ago. It's kind of closing in on half of my life lived here in
Wow.
Canada. And it's funny. I remember the first week and the first month in Canada. I was counting the days. I was like, okay, I've been here for a week. And
Yeah.
okay, I've been here for a month. And I kid you not, now I'm like, wow, I just blinked once and now 10 years.
That's crazy.
11, I don't know. It was 2009, so now it's 2021. 12 years.
Wow.
A little quick math. Yeah.
How was that kind of culture shock making that move? And had you visited Canada before you made that move, or was that the first time?
I think part of the reason why we moved to Canada, obviously it's better life, better opportunities, everything you've heard.
Yeah.
Part of the reason is when I was in elementary, I came to Canada actually in the East Coast for English summer camp, kind of just learn English. It was like a 3-week. I was just away. I was at I think in Ottawa. I was in Ottawa for 3 weeks and just to learn English. And then when I came back, I was like, Mom, Dad, this place is awesome. It's green. It's green everywhere. There's so much grass. And it was summer, right? So it wasn't like I came here in the winter.
Yeah.
So it was like it's hot. It's perfect. And then I don't know, somehow that got into my dad, and he kind of started the process. It was like a 2-3 years process, and then we came here in 2009. Well, to Calgary actually. Right now I'm in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. But it was a big cultural change for sure.
Yeah, for sure it was. Was it in the summer or the winter that you made the move?
Just before September. So I was gonna start grade 9 like a week after I moved or something, or a month, something like crazy like that. Yeah.
And how was your English when you first moved here?
It was good. I mean, I could like, I made friends right away.
Okay.
Obviously, I had a thick accent. Mm-hmm. Didn't know some, like, I guess, lingo and
that stuff that just comes with time.
But I was how old was I? I was 14. I learned them really quick, so it wasn't too bad.
What were some of the biggest culture shocks? Like, what were the biggest differences that you saw right when you came in? If you can remember back that far.
No, I remember. Like, one of the biggest things is everyone in Calgary, at least where I went, was really, I mean, still 14-year-old people. So, like, young, right? I mean, pretty young, like, I guess. And whereas in Mexico City at 14 years old, you're kind of like I don't know, mini adult.
Yeah.
Not independence wise, but you just I don't know, you just like people like smoke, drink, just like go to like parties, like actual parties and stuff.
Yeah.
And I came here and I was like, everyone's so like, I don't know, they're still kids. And I thought I was like, I'm so much older than all of you. But now looking back, I'm like, no, they were just the age they should be.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh man, that's so interesting to hear that. And how long did that take you to adjust for? And did you adjust, or did you kind of find yourself migrating to a crowd of kind of older minded kids, or did you were you able to revert back to kind of that more childish age and kind of just go in with the group? Because I think when you're younger, you're more of a chameleon. You can kind of fit into whatever group you want, right?
Yeah. So that's exactly what happened. So I guess luckily I got into a junior high that was like, I don't know, my year had maybe 30 people or something. Wow. It was pretty small. So everyone knew each other, and I had to kind of make friends with everyone.
Yeah.
So I became, like you said, like them. And looking back, it was good. I mean, I don't want to be 14-year-old. I think you should be your age. You should be you should age appropriately, not too fast, not too slow.
And I always, that was one of the questions I actually wrote down was, I feel like your demeanor is so infectious. I feel like in Lister, everyone just loved being around you. You're just such a happy guy, and you're always funny and making people laugh, and just never a downer to be around. And I was thinking, I wonder if that was, coming to a new country and having to be that way. But it almost seems like it's deeper than that. It seems like that was something you already had. Do you think that was something that was kind of in you from before? Was that something that you had prior to 14 and prior to the move?
Well, actually, I've never thought about it, but now that you say that we're like chameleons, maybe growing up in Mexico, I became like a outgoing person, because everyone in Mexico, everything's a joke. Everyone jokes about everything, and it's just part of the Mexican culture.
Mm-hmm.
You deal with everything through, I guess, joking, like death, Day of the Death. You kind of ridicule death and things like that. So yeah, it's in me to kind of make fun of everything, not in a mean way, but just it's not that serious. Just
and that's a healthy way to look at it. And I think that's something that something that really changed me when I graduated was getting into podcasts. And most of the podcasts I got into were all stand-up comedians, and looking at everything through that lens of taking everything as a joke. And it, like you say, it's not in a bad way, and you're not joking in any kind of mean-spirited way, but it's just a way of navigating the world that takes some of the pressures off and keeps you grounded to the kind of the craziness of it all. It's crazy that we're here. It's crazy that if you really look at all the things that had to come together for life to be created and to expand to this point, and like the fact that we have cars and shit, it's just all so wild. And people, it's very easy to lose touch with that. But when you have a culture that kind of keeps a little bit of that a grasp on that wildness and just the craziness of the world itself, it keeps you a little bit more grounded. That makes a lot of sense, and you see that in a lot of cultures. And I think that's something where there's a lot about in America. And then when you talk America, it's always a little bit like diet. Canada's like diet America, right? It's some of the same things, but with a little bit of a twist. But you can make the same argument for, especially when you talk about death, that is something where it's so taboo and so under talked about it in lots of cultures in North America, specifically Canada and America. You see the consequences of that roll out through a society, and you don't. And I didn't realize how much of it. I've been reading tons of books. I've been don't have my girlfriend's reading the other one, but The Worm at the Core, and then Don't Think About Death by Gary Laderman, and all these books. And just it's amazing how much death and the culture around death impacts the society. And it's interesting to hear that, because that joking mentality and how much that brings it forward. Do you miss that kind of jokingness and having that in the culture at all?
So I don't know. I don't not really. I mean, the more I've been here, the more I'm not that I dislike Mexicans or anything, because I am Mexican.
Right.
But sometimes I think, okay, it's too much.
Oh,
I'm a little more toned down now, I think.
Yeah.
Like a little more serious than I was, I think.
Right. But I think that's almost what you want, right? Is to take, and I think that's what's so powerful about multiculturalism itself.
You become a hybrid of two cultures, I think.
And that's always where the fruits are at, right? It's that combination. It's like evolution itself, right? When you take more diversity, that's what brings off stronger offspring, right? When you bring things together, that when you bring the kind of jokiness, everything is joke from this side, and then maybe the too serious, and you find that middle ground. Now you can flip through both worlds and bring the best of them, right? It's very powerful.
Like, speaking of like a joking culture, there's like a joke in Mexico, like you said, evolution with basically when two people from, I guess, far away, different race or whatever, get together, they kind of, I mean, I don't know any biology, but supposedly they improve the race, the offspring, right? Mm-hmm. So in Mexico, you can like go to your, I guess, in-law and say, hey, in-law, what's up? I came to improve the race, kind of like, I'm gonna get your daughter or something.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's funny. Oh, and then specifically Mexico City. I mean, when you hear you grew up in Mexico, that's one thing, but I think something I didn't realize, but Mexico City versus the rest of Mexico is quite different. I think it's by far the most populous place in Mexico. What is the second biggest place in Mexico? Just for frame of reference.
Oh man, I don't know. That's a good question, but
it'd be a huge drop, eh?
Actually, I'm not sure. I would imagine is one of like the neighboring states.
Right.
Mexico City, which is kind of blended in with Mexico City.
Mm-hmm. So
there's like this called State of Mexico, which is a state in Mexico,
Right. Yeah.
which is like kind of touching Mexico City. So I would imagine that's probably the second biggest place. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on
Right.
that. But
Okay, fair enough. But kind of where I was going with that is I think for myself and for so many people that grow up around here, all we see of Mexico is the resorts, is the coast, is the the Cabos, the Puerto Vallartas, those kind of places. And I think everyone gets an idea. Yeah, Cancun, they get an idea of what Mexico is to them from what they've experienced of it. And it's so much different. I'm finding, I mean, you could tell me, I shouldn't be telling you this, but I think it's so much different. But just maybe where are the biggest differences as you see it from kind of what you see as people's understanding of Mexico versus what you seen of being engrossed in and being there?
So yeah, like you said, usually people think of like resorts, beaches, and stuff. Which I mean,
Yeah,
it is Mexico also.
for sure.
Mexico is a lot of things. A big country. There's a lot,
Mhm.
a lot of cultures in every state. But maybe Mexico City, I think people don't realize how big and developed it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. When I first moved here, I mean, Calgary is like a under 1 million people
Yeah.
city. You couldn't find some of the things you could find in Mexico, like malls where, I mean, we had one mall, I guess, big mall in Calgary, Chinook
Yeah.
Mall. And whereas in Mexico, you have like a mall per, I don't know, almost community, and they're like really nice malls. And
Yeah.
just people don't realize how, I guess, developed and how much money there is, because there's a lot
Yeah.
of money moving around in Mexico City.
Oh, that's so interesting, man. I've always thought, I've been to Mexico a ton of times as a kid, but never to Mexico City. I always think, one of these times I'm gonna actually have to do a trip there and go see what it's all about. I mean, I've heard so many stories about, I've heard people say it's worth it, go there just to see the type of traffic and the type of roadways they have and just how they navigate it all.
I mean, it's worth to see, but I mean, I think you can pull up a YouTube video and then kind of get it over with, because it's not nice to be immersed in the traffic.
Well, fair enough.
Well, I think
I'm sure there's more to it than that too.
Last time I went, I remember my friend was driving, right? Because I've never driven in Mexico, and I probably won't. I don't really want to. He was driving, and I was just like hanging onto my seatbelt, and like not kind of, but really, yeah, a little. Because I was like, man, this car is so close. It's like trying to cut you in. This other guy is also trying to do the same, and the guy behind you is like not leaving enough distance.
Yeah.
You're about to hit the car in the front. I was like, if I stuck my hand out the window, I'm gonna touch this bus. And he's just like, hand in one phone, like multitasking.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy. I'm never gonna do this. This is crazy.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah. Not a place for defensive driving, you could say, I don't think. You got to be a little bit.
No. The car's not socially distanced for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. How often do you get to go back? Like, have you gone back like once a year since you left, or has it been every couple of years?
When I first moved here, I used to go probably once a year for the first 5 years or so. And then after that, it was kind of like, I think my mom was one, she had kind of more trouble adjusting to living in Canada. She's the one who was more missing home and missing family and missing just like food, literally everything.
Yeah.
Trouble. So we used to go back once a year. And then after that, she kind of was like, okay, maybe I like Canada a little more now.
Yeah.
And we stopped going so often. I think we haven't been since 2018 December. Right. And that was, we actually went to Cancun.
Oh, nice.
We didn't go to see family or anything. Yeah. I think we're going to go December this year. Yeah. Fingers crossed. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully, right? That's the unfortunate part of trying to plan anything right now is it's just you never know what you can and can't do, right? It's
yeah. I mean, I like to think it can't be worse, but also I know that's naive thinking.
Yeah, it's tough, but I think, I don't know. I think the more I keep trying to lean towards positive, I think there's just so much negativity about everything that I feel like there's been some tides turning towards positivity and some people getting sick of the fear and all this stuff of just kind of turning some of that stuff off and finding some other mediums that aren't just trying to scare everybody. And it's hopefully, I mean, maybe this is just my wishful thinking, but I'm hoping that the tide's turning and people are starting to see a little bit more hope on the horizon and getting out of this.
I get the same feeling. I get the same feeling for sure. I think there's a lot more, positivity, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas this time, or maybe not this time, maybe February last year, March, everyone was kind of naive, like, it'll last a month. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe 2. All right, 3,
Yeah.
fine.
Well, by September we'll be fine
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah,
sure.
yeah. I can celebrate my birthday in October. It'll be
Yeah.
fine. Nope.
Oh man. And that was yeah, no. I mean, I've been talking that stuff to death on every podcast it seems to come up just because it permeates through everything, right?
I
But it's just
mean, yeah, yeah,
oh. But what I do, I mean, we can talk about that for sure, but kind of interested in how we can reconnected to, hop on the podcast. I mean, we're friends and don't need to reconnect, but we were on LinkedIn and you had saw something about a Lex Friedman post that I was commenting on or something. We got
yeah,
talking
yeah.
on that. And I'm wondering, was that just a one-off that you listened to Lex Friedman, or is that somebody you listen to? Do you listen to podcasts a lot? And is that something that has something to do with your work as well? Because I was just kind of looking at what you do on LinkedIn, and the you can never get too much from a job title, but
Yeah.
from what I could read, it seemed pretty interesting.
So I didn't listen to podcasts at all, even though
Yeah.
everyone told me to. Everyone recommended them.
Yeah.
I just wasn't interested. I don't know. I couldn't figure out why.
Yeah.
And then I think end of last year, probably November. Actually, no, after the summer.
Yeah.
So okay. So last year was kind of tough for me.
For sure.
I didn't have a job for a whole year.
Wow.
Maybe we can talk about that later. But
Yeah.
So I started like just looking anywhere and everywhere for motivation or anything to kind of get me going or anything to just give me anything. I was kind of almost desperate.
Yeah.
So I started looking at just motivational podcasts. It started with like shorter ones, like a minute clip of someone just being inspirational and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I started to look for kind of like longer podcast. I started listening to Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. He's great.
He's great. I mean,
yeah.
people like it, people don't like him, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
I read his book and then I said, okay, maybe I'll listen to him this time while I walk.
Yeah.
And then after that, I like somehow got into Joe Rogan because I think he had some podcasts with Joe Rogan. And then
yeah,
okay, this is pretty fucking cool. I can listen to someone for 4 hours and be okay with it.
Yeah.
And then kind of because I was switching fields right after my graduation.
Mm-hmm.
I did school in geophysics.
Right.
Kind of dying field. Yeah, it's a dying field. So I was like, okay, I need to gain some depth to my skills, like expand my skill set.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm getting a lot out of listening to people talk, like because I was getting a lot. It's kind of like having a conversation with someone, but you're listening.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna look for something more, I guess, educational or technical, if you will.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was looking at some machine learning podcasts, and that's how I came across him. And then I was at the gym. You shared the post. I forgot what it was. It was one of his episodes, and I think, oh, this is crazy coincidence. I'm listening to him right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I got started, and now I'm hooked. Every time I go to the gym, I listen to one. Sometimes even throughout my workout, I'm listening to one.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so funny to hear all that because that it so mirrors exactly what my journey was. Just was bored doing data entry, found one podcast that has nothing to do, and I've never listened to since. Actually, their first 100 episodes are up on YouTube. It was the Nerdist podcast. I've never listened to another one past that, but then I finished all 100 of them, and I was like, man, this is awesome. And I never really give Joe Rogan a chance, but he had what's her name? She was on King of Queens. She's an actress, and she was in Scientology, and she kind of escaped and was telling her story about Scientology. And I just watched that documentary that came out a couple of years back on Scientology and everything around it. So I was super interested. I was like, I'll give this Joe Rogan guy a try. And I listened to him on that. And I was like, man, he actually is, pretty intellectual and he has some good points. Yeah. And then, started listening to it. And then I listened to a couple of comedians, and I love stand-up comedy. Right. Yeah. And from then I was hooked. Every day I listened to at least a podcast a day. Right. I listened to probably multiple, and and it led you to people like Jordan Peterson. He'd come on Joe Rogan. Who is this guy? And you listen to a couple more things. Man, how did I not know this guy exists? Or Lex Friedman. It's just so fun to not only get something out of that podcast, but then all the other people it brings you to, right?
Yeah, you just, I don't know, you learn. To me, like, you learn. I think Jordan Peterson said that maybe listening is a better way to learn as opposed to reading. Because we only started reading, I don't know, hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
We've been listening since we could seems
Yeah.
can listen.
Yeah. And most of our knowledge historically has been oral cultures, right? Orally passed down. And usually where Jordan Peterson really stakes his claim is not just the power of oral, but the power of storytelling. And that's where Jordan Peterson really digs in, opposed to some people like Sam Harris, where, and if you ever need something good, watch the Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson debates. If you haven't already, they're absolutely amazing. The back and forth they can do while still, having some camaraderie and, having really heated discussions about it, walking off the next day and coming on stage together and being friends and stuff. It was just very,
that's pretty
very
cool.
nice to see. But he really shows that when you can put things in terms of a story, and I think that's what happens is a lot of times in a 3-hour podcast, right? Just to use Joe Rogan, for example, there's a lot of knowledge in there, but I find a lot of times, right, when you're reading, it's hard for that to really impact you. And for you to, you can read something like
you have to be good at reading first, I think, which is not easy. I don't think it's easy to be good at reading.
No, it's definitely not. And I think it's also something that is so much dependent on how you're brought up, right? Like my parents had little cue cards all over my room when I was very, very little and would read with me every night and read words. And I'm a very impressive reader, right? I can crush through books super fast, and that's a skill I'm very proud of. But I owe it all to my parents of making me read and having me read so much as a kid. Now I have that skill, right? And I think people just don't like it. And I think also what's unfortunate to me is I think reading has a little bit of taboo, especially for men. And reading fiction, I think that's what hooks you in. Eventually, just the skill of being able to read words is what you need. But for you to grow that skill, you have to work at it. And for you to work at it, you want to enjoy it. And I think that was, me finding like Harry Potter and Twilight and all those things that kept me hooked and kept me reading through. Taboos be damned. But I think a lot of people just say, they get this story and this narrative of, oh, I don't like to read, right? And I think a lot of people get that. So then you shuts you right down from reading. You never try, you never find these things.
Yeah, you never even tried reading. How can you say
exactly that? And then it's frustrating because then you're not a good reader. So then it's frustrating to read. It's not when I crack open a book, this is an awesome experience, I'm fully immersed. But when you're stumbling and rereading and trying to do that, it takes you out of it. And what I think is so special now is the rise of audiobooks and how now this is bringing a whole generation of these people that I don't like reading people, and it gives this new medium for them to take it in, right? And it doesn't slow you down because the human mind can process people speaking at a rate like, I don't know, it's something like we can read, like, I'm just going to throw numbers out here because I don't know the actual ones. Like if we can read at 500 words a minute, I know that's crazy. We can listen at 2,000 words a minute, right? We can take in audio information so much faster than we can read it. So that now these people that it would take them, if we read the same book, it would take me an hour to take them 4 hours. Now with audio, that gap is completely flipped, right? If you train yourself to listen, right, which is a new skill, to listen at speed, they can catch up to that and they can bridge that gap. And now they have the same access to all this information that all these people that were privileged to read as a child and to enjoy reading now have. And I think that is, I don't think we've realized that yet. And I don't think we've taken full advantage of it, but I think in the next 10 years, we're going to start to see that. And that's where things are going to take off.
So, I mean, it sounds like you do both a lot, right? Listening and reading.
Yeah.
I mean, for someone, what would you recommend to someone to start with reading or start with podcast or do a bit of both? Or
I think it depends. I think it depends what you're trying to do. I'd say if there was a specific like skill set they were trying to take in and they wanted to like read some books on it, right? Like if you're trying to get into like machine learning or something, if you had some books on that, I would say if you can, I would attempt to read it. What I usually do is I buy a book first, and if it's my first time reading it, I'll read through it hard copy, just because that's how I like to take in the information. That's kind of how I build it. And then if I ever want to go back to them, I'll listen through them, right? Like I had some authors on the other day, and I was surprised they said yes. So I said, well, I kind of want to reread all your stuff first. So in a week, I listened to, I think, 4 or 5 books, just, at 3 times speed, every waking hour of the day, while I was working out, while I was driving, while I was, at night, like if I was going to play video games, I'd put that on, and just crush through it. And it gave you that, it gave me that speed to read through where I could never read those books that fast. Right. Like you can, I always thought there's no way I could listen faster than I read, but I find like I almost figured out I can read at like a 2 times speed audiobook rate. Right. But I can listen past 2 times speed. I can't read past 2 times speed. So if I want to really consume something fast, then I go to that. Right. So if I was saying, if you were trying to work on the skill of taking in information at speed, I would maybe recommend a podcast because it's more conversationally. I think what's good for them is to find ones that are maybe a little bit less techie side, right? Like I love comedians for this, just get comedians. They're talking shit. They're joking around. You can follow it. And then also what I recommend to people, if they're trying to learn how to speed up the content, is to watch it, right? If you watch a podcast on YouTube at speed, you can read lips and you can take body language. You can get a lot more of what they're saying. And it helps your brain catch up to that speed, where if you're just listening, if you miss something, then you're trying to think, well, what did I miss? And you disconnect from it. It's really hard. But I think when you can visually see it as well, that helps. So yeah, I would say it all depends on what they're trying to get out of it. I would always recommend podcasts, even if you are getting into books. I think podcast is just a special medium that has something that we haven't even realized the power of yet. So I'd always recommend that to people. But I think also you can't discount books.
I think podcasts got so popular and I mean successful and big because people are so busy, and then with podcasts they can multitask.
Yeah.
They can listen to it and then do something else, something that they don't want to do or have to do or whatever, and kind of make the chore a little more fun, I think.
For sure. Podcast changed working out for me, for me to know that, it was kind of a slot, if I had to run an hour a day, which I do easily now, and it's not a big deal, but it was really kind of daunting for a while. But then when you have all these podcasts booked up and you're too busy with work to be able to listen to any, and hey, I got to go work out for an hour, but I know I get an hour of listening to podcasts, right? Which at 2.5 times speed. Okay. I can finish a whole Joe Rogan in that time. Okay. So now I equate a 1 hour run with 3 hours of knowledge from, somebody that I really look up to, like Joe Rogan, with a guest that's going to be huge. It's awesome. Now I love running. I love looking forward to it because now it's my time doing that. Same with driving. I used to hate driving, being in Grand Prairie, it's a 4-hour drive to Edmonton. Oh, that's a slog, but hey, I can crush a lot of podcasts in that time. It's that's quiet. True. It's no one bugging me. Oh, it's changed all the, and that's what I think is so powerful too, is I'm such an efficiency guy that I would be so angry when I had to do something that I didn't like working out or doing something that was, it just felt like I was just doing this because I was forced to. But now I enjoy everything I do. If I can add a podcast to it, I can enjoy anything, right?
You almost look at things in terms of podcasts.
I do. I really do.
Right,
yeah.
This is 2 hours. Okay, I can listen. And you probably have a list of podcasts that you like, your infinite list of to listen or to go through. I started working out and listening to podcasts, and it's awesome. I love it. I don't know. I'm like, my workout's a lot easier, not because I don't push myself, but just kind of takes away that, I don't know. Yeah, it's almost like even autopilot, I think.
Yeah, it gets you into that flow state almost, where you're just going and you're not actively thinking about what you're doing. Yeah. And definitely, like, there's some workouts where I'll use music, right? Like if I'm lifting, if not that I've been lifting in the last year, because where am I going to lift? But some things like that, maybe I'll go with music. Maybe I'll need a little bit more bite to it. Maybe I'll need something or other. Maybe if I'm really running and I'm really struggling, and I'm, maybe I need a little bit of, AC/DC or
put some Eminem, Lose Yourself.
Exactly. Then you're flying. You need that stuff sometimes, but on just your everyday, workouts, and just to get excited to know that you have that and you have something to look forward to, even if it's not really exactly right for that day, you're fine, right?
So yeah, no, I recommend everyone try it once. I mean, my girlfriend, I told my girlfriend, I said, oh, I'm listening to this and I'm working out. She loves working out. She like breathes fitness. She is fitness almost. Yeah. And I told her, you should try one. And she said, no, you're crazy. Like when I'm in my workout, I like to focus on my work. And I'm like, I don't know. You don't know. You haven't tried it.
Yeah, you haven't. You don't know what you're missing, hey?
Yeah.
But I think that also goes to finding a podcast that you really like that much too, because I feel like that's also what happens with some people, is that there's so many podcasts, and there's so many podcasts that really, because it shows so much of who that person is that's on that podcast, and it's so open and so in depth with who they are, and there's so many people doing it, that all it takes is for you to find that right person that you click with and that you can understand, right? And I think that's some people will try, I listened to a podcast once, I didn't like it, right? And it's completely fair. I can see that, right?
You don't even have to finish the whole episode. I mean, I used to think that whenever I started, I had to finish everything, anything, even if I didn't like it. But you don't have to, because you're just wasting your time. You can like end it, cut your losses, and start with a new one that you actually like, and you have time to go through it. Yeah. So if you don't like something, just skip it or go to something else. Don't feel like obligated to, I don't know, finish what you started or something.
Exactly. And if you do that, that's a good tool, because now you can find, say you listen to 10 podcasts, just to say, and you find, oh, with this one, I've never not finished a Lex Friedman podcast. I like all of these, right? But this Joe Rogan, I end up, only finishing half of it. And then you can kind of prioritize, right? Like that's kind of the journey I went on. And now I have over 100 podcasts that I like and that I listen to, right? But I can't listen to them all. It's just physically impossible. So I have to rank each one by that, right? Like, if a Joe Rogan comes out, I'm going to listen to it, right? Alex Friedman, they're in that realm of these ones I listen to all the time. Then there's some that fall into another category where if I have the time, I'm going to listen to these ones, but it might take me some time to catch up. And, I might get really behind on them, but I'll catch up maybe one weekend. If I find a new video game that I can play and I don't need to, have my mind completely on it, I'll throw these on and just catch up on some. And then there's some where they have a really big place in my heart. I love these podcasts, but I just don't have time. There's other ones that I value more, and I'll dip into those every once in a while, right? Maybe I'm missing something spiritually, right? And here's a good example. So Pete Holmes, he's a comedian, a stand-up comic, and he's he grew up very, very not Catholic, Christian, I don't know, some sort of one of those Judeo-Christian religious upbringings, and it was very, very strong in Boston. And throughout his life, he's kind of gone on a very spiritual journey and expanded his idea of he's still very religious, but now in a very different sense, and very much more of a, taking from each religion kind of the more through lines of them all, and kind of taking that on as his religion, right? A lot of Buddhism, a lot of Eastern mysticism, a lot of, traditional, Catholic Christian values, all that stuff. And he really was influential on me in changing my outlook on what religion can be, right? And very much to me is one of those spiritual leaders that I look to, similar, probably now Aubrey Marcus would be like this for me, and a couple other people, but he was one of those podcasts, I loved it and I love his podcast, but I wouldn't listen to all the time. It kind of fell into one of those things. But during this pandemic, it was, a time where spirituality and belief wise, I was very much drained, right? It was, when there's not a lot to give you hope and not a lot to give you belief, you're relying on taking that from the inside and bringing that out and giving that to other people. And I was finding very much depleted, and I just thought on a whim, maybe I should, go back to some Pete Holmes and then to listen to a couple episodes with him and just get his outlook on it. And just, he always says something profound that really impacts you and just refills that bar of that one little area that I found with this current mix of podcasts that I'm really looking into. I'm missing this one piece. And then I added that back in and I felt like a new person. Right. And to have that repertoire of things to go back to find, like, what do I need in my day? Right. Do I need a little bit of Joey Diaz, like going to make me laugh off, fall on my chair and teach me some real knowledge about being a man and that kind of thing. Right. Because you get that. Is that what I need right now? And it's just about being honest with yourself. Okay, what do I need in this day, right? And I feel like
I need to laugh? Do I need to think? Do I need to? Yeah.
And when I first started the podcast, I was so focused on being, a good podcast and intellectual. So I really focused. I was listening to all Joe Rogan, all Lex Friedman, all these really highly intellectual people that I feel like I really looked up to. And I kind of cut all my comedy podcasts out. And I didn't like the person that I was becoming. No,
man, comedy is great. Comedy is good for soul. You have to laugh.
Yeah. So I had to find that balance. I had to add those back in, like get a little bit more of those goofballs back into the mix and laugh at yourself and laugh at everything around you, laugh at the situation. If you can't laugh at this situation, right? And I feel like that's probably with all this COVID stuff, I think that's probably the biggest mistake that you see is it's serious and we have to take it serious, but you also have to be able to laugh at the situation. You have to have a little bit of humor in it. And it's been absolutely absent from anybody but the podcast space. It seems like there's lots of people laughing and joking about it, but that's that release you need. But if you're imagining someone that doesn't listen to podcasts, doesn't have that, or doesn't have that fulfilled in some other area, or, usually what would step into that is your friends, you joke around with your friends about it, but now you separate out that
sad. They're also down. So
they're also down. Yeah. And you can't really see them. You can't really, go commiserate with them over some beers and stuff like that. Aspect is gone. You need it somewhere. And I think that's what's been so, I feel bad for people that don't have podcasts through something like this where it's so socially isolating. Because like you said at the very start of what it is to listen to a podcast, it's, being part of that conversation. You can't throw any more input to it, but it's
you can't participate, but you're there. You're there. You're listener. Yeah.
It feels like that. And I feel like something I've been missing so much throughout this is just conversation. Right. And luckily I started this so I can get that back in my life. And I realize how much I miss it is just, connecting with someone like this and just having a conversation goes so far for my own mental health and what I need. And I had to create this to make that happen. Right. Because it's, that'd be hard to ask somebody to just give me a couple hours of time just to have a bullshit. They probably think you're crazy if you did this. If we weren't recording right now, people, and I did this once a week with people where I just sat down with them and talk like that, people would probably look at you like you're crazy, right? Like, but it's it's important, and it's one of those pieces that I don't think people realized how much they need in their lives. And you just got to find your own way. Not everyone's going to start a podcast, but maybe listening to one, maybe, starting a book club. I don't know. Like there's always ideas wherever you can bring in that long form conversation where it's not just two people sitting on their phone and, talking every 5 minutes about that last play on the game, right? Like that doesn't go as far, right?
Yeah. So bottom line is listen to podcasts, more to podcasts, give them a try.
Yeah. Give them a try. Hey. So then as you went down, you kind of walked us through how you got into podcasts, but now that you've listened to them, what are some of your favorites now that you've, tried some, liked some, didn't like some? Oh, you said, you like the Joe Rogans and you like a couple of
I pretty much said all of them. So that's how I started. I started with like some motivational clips. Yeah. And then I went to Jordan Peterson. And then I went to Joe Rogan. And then I went to Lex.
Yeah.
And now I'm listening to like a Mexican podcast of guys in Mexico City that is like my funny one. It's my comedy one. They just sit down and they just like talk nonsense and just like joke about everything, or pretty like say a bunch of swear words, and it's just fun. I just like
it's so fun
to it and giggle, and it just feels good. Like I'm out there cooking in the kitchen, and like I have my earphones. I'm listening to it. I'm just laughing like stupid. My roommate walks in. And I'm like, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm just laughing. Like these people are doing stupid things, but I love it. So but it's listening to.
And it's funny how impactful those comedy podcasts are, because I feel like humor in the last 20 years has been very much neutered, right? There's a lot of restrictions on what you can and can't say in terms of being funny, right? There's a lot of people waiting to pounce on you, and that scares a lot of people off of the humor. So when you go turn on TV, anything with comedy on TV is pretty rough. It's not really that funny. They put a laugh track behind it to kind of train you to laugh. But if you watch something like The Big Bang Theory with the laugh track turned off, it's not very funny because they're not allowed to be funny. I'm sure there's very funny writers. I'm sure there's very funny actors on it. But once it goes through all those producers, it's taken away. But with podcasts, there's none of that. It's if it occurs to them in that moment and it's funny to them, even if it's a little twisted, they're gonna say it. And that is so. I find myself so many times, like I'll be on a flight where I'm just trying to control my laugh, like I am dying, like just shaking, laughing at how hard or some of the shit that's being said, right? And just to have that release is so nice when you have a good comedy podcast and they get on a good roll. I think the biggest one for this to me is Andrew Schultz, which it's the podcast is called Flagrant 2. That's actually the shirt I'm wearing right now. It's from their merch, but it was started as a basketball podcast, and I'm not even a basketball guy. The only way I got into basketball was with Chase and Fraser in Lister, and they kind of hooked me into it and showed me a little bit more. But then when I started listening to that, but those guys get on a roll sometimes where they're saying the wildest shit, and I'll be like tears coming down my face laughing. To have that tears come down your face laughing is such a release. If you can get that once a month, you are doing good, right? If you can have that in your life. And I feel like right now, that used to only time I would ever laugh that hard was when I was around my buddies and we'd be drinking and stuff and being goofballs, and I'd be crying laughing. But now when you separate that out during a pandemic, you don't have that. And this is the one way where you can get that, right? You're not going to get that from a TV show. You're maybe a movie, but usually it's only the first time. And those movies only come once in a while, The Hangover or, Superbad or some of those movies that are just so funny to get you, but usually one time, whereas podcasts, it's week after week where
they dark humor. You need some dark humor in your life.
Oh yeah. Everybody needs some dark humor. I think dark humor is the best kind of humor. I think if it's one of those things, humor and comedy is so pure because you can't fake it. When you make someone laugh, it's involuntary, right? Even if you shouldn't laugh and they still get you, right?
But it's funny. It's funny. You just can't help it.
Right? Which is so funny to me to watch people shit on comedy and shit on people trying to make it laugh, because it is completely self-policing. If it's not funny, people won't laugh, and people won't. If it is funny, people will laugh, right? And there's certain, society kind of is a bit slow at that, right? It catches up slower and it finds what is and isn't funny and finds those lines, and those lines are always moving. But if you're not trying, you don't know where those lines are. And I feel like when you try and assert those lines yourself without doing a scientific test, which is what humor is testing that line and finding where that funny is and where that funny isn't.
Yeah.
people push back. You know, if you want to tell me what's funny, that doesn't ring true to me because I know what's funny.
It doesn't mean that you're a bad person or that you have bad
not
intentions or that you wish bad on anyone. If it, like you said, if it makes you laugh without you even thinking that you're about to laugh, then it's funny. Like, I mean, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person at all.
No, exactly. So. And I think that's where people just, you know, there's been social equity in taking people down now, and how that's unfortunately permeates through, and there's ripples of what that effect is. And I think for a long time, I think comedy was under attack, but in the last couple of years, I think with, you could probably attribute this a lot to podcasting, because now all these comedians that were, you know, were completely dependent on this club system and doing their stand-up and no other, they made money no other way. So now if you get attacked, if people take you down and you get canceled or whatever, you can't make any money, right?
Yeah.
But now these podcasters or these comedians all have a podcast that it maybe doesn't make the same money as they make on the road, but at least they can support themselves. So now they have the freedom, and you could watch kind of with the rise of podcasts and watch the comedians that had a stable base that now it's almost, it's the concept of fuck you money. But
can podcasts still be like censored or something? If I don't know, can anyone take them down, or like if you cross a line or something, or is there a line?
Each podcast platform has certain restrictions on what they will say. It's pretty loosey goosey. It usually only comes back in the sense of if there's people that listen, whip up an outcry, and get it all going on social media, and then come back at somebody. But historically, it's been the one era where censorship has really faltered and has really kind of left it to its own devices. And I think also it's just people don't realize podcasts are hugely monumental in society right now, but society doesn't realize it. It's in that little space where it's ginormous. And, you know, somebody like Joe Rogan is making hundreds of $1 million a year, right? Everyone was so crazy. Oh, he got $100 million deal from Spotify. That's nothing compared to what he's really making, right? Like, he invests in all these companies he talks about on the podcast, and if you explained all the different ways he's making money, that's just one thing, but people don't realize it. People didn't open their eyes to what power he had until that, you know, that dollar amount, because they just don't get it. Unless you listen to podcasts and you understand the power of having it affect you, you say, oh, once you understand it, you get it. You can only get it once you get it. You know what I mean? Like
I get it.
People, you get it. That's what I'm saying. You get it because you've been there. But I think before you didn't get it. You thought, what are these podcasts? You know, it's not really for me, and you didn't understand. But once you get it, you get it. And I think I know. I think I could say that about 6 more times. But I think that's where podcasting is special. It's in that little niche area where it's got so many eyeballs on it, but not the wrong eyeballs that just want to take things down. And it's such a community of love and compassion and helping people out and, you know, supporting each other, that it insulates itself away from all that negativity. Whereas I think, going forward, you see a lot of things come out. Just recently, I just shared a couple of things on my VonDubCast, Instagram page about them starting to talk about the censorship. They're saying with all this just lately of people getting taken off Twitter, Parler being taken down off of the app stores and stuff. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of talk about censorship and the fear that people have of where that goes next, and the systems that creates by giving people that power to arbitrarily pick and choose who can and can't speak. And I think now there's a couple congressmen that have said some things about, hey, there's this podcasting is the real source of evil. This is where all this stuff is going, because podcasting has been, I know it's very worrying, because podcast has been that one bastion of truth throughout all the craziness of the past decade, right? Of just people can speak freely.
Would it be as easy as just go to another platform, just try a different place to, upload your content?
It would all,
as long as people can find it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that's what it is. And I think that's the power of what podcasts are, is there's so many different platforms that would essentially, what a podcast is you have this RSS feed, right? It's just somewhere on the internet where it's just a directory where if somebody has this RSS feed, that's like what you subscribe to on Apple Podcasts is an RSS feed, right? On Spotify, they tie into that. And it just, all it is it's telling it where to go on the internet to download this MP3 file. So you have it on your phone, right? Okay. So essentially all that is, right? So then I use a site called Buzzsprout, and that is my hosting site. So I upload to that. It gives me an RSS feed, and then I have that tied. So now Apple knows that that's my RSS feed. Yeah. And then So Apple knows that, Spotify knows that. YouTube, I have to upload separately. I have to actually make it because it doesn't tie off RSS feed because it's a video
what
file.
does that stand for, RSS feed?
That is a great question. I'm going to guess router, system, social. I don't know. No idea. But that's what it is.
A combination of those words.
It's an RSS feed. I don't know.
Yeah.
So you're right. There's a million different platforms that can take it on, right? Like when my first thing I went to is you go onto that Buzzsprout and then it's got a whole list of directories, right? That's what they call them. So Apple Podcasts would be a directory. And you can sign your podcast up so that RSS feed ties into that directory. So I did Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, I think was one of the bigger ones, but that list continues down and there's, probably 15 to 20 different ones. And then there's other ones that you don't even sign up for that just as your show gets enough,
traction,
traction, bites on the internet, whatever it is, they'll start to pull it onto their platforms. Unfortunately, sometimes they put ads on it and stuff that I don't see anything of, right? I've said that before. I don't know if I've said it in a while, but if anybody hears this podcast and you hear ads on it, something's going wrong. Please let me know because I haven't put any ads. I don't make any money. So if you hear ads, somebody else is making money off of this, right? Like,
okay. All right.
But what I'm worried about is not that they'll censor it altogether, but what I worried about is one of the big players, right? If say Apple Podcasts started to, kick people off of their platform, if, Google Podcasts, right? But then you'd still have YouTube. But I mean, YouTube hasn't really been the, bastion of free speech that you would hope it is for what it serves in society, for it's almost a societal good, what YouTube is, right? What it's become, but they don't often work that way. And they have been kind of more looking out for their bottom dollar and looking out for looking good in terms of what people are saying about them on Twitter than what is actually good and what is actually right. So I think there could be some things coming down. I just the thought of them trying is what worries me, just because I think even watching Joe Rogan go to Spotify, I think that is such a good for him. He made some money, but just the platform isn't very good. It's, like the video platform, like trying to watch videos on it is kind of crap. It doesn't transfer nicely.
Yeah, no, I've never watched a single video from Spotify.
Oh, it's terrible.
Because I use Spotify through my phone. I'm not going to watch a podcast through my phone, I think.
Yeah. So then I downloaded the Spotify app on my computer so I could try and watch it. It's absolute garbage, which is whatever. He got paid a lot of money to go onto one platform, but that's what happens is now I feel like Joe Rogan is almost approaching that same thing as YouTube, where that is a societal good. There's some information that is only there. And like, he's willing to take that risk to have people on that aren't having their message heard anywhere else. But now it's restricted to that. And people, it's still free. It's still watchable. But I think it's just when you add any sort of little barriers where it's not as easy as possible, people are going to drop off. And I would guess that his numbers have taken a ginormous hit. I thought there's no way that Joe Rogan will take it. He's just too good. And people
I think
will
he was saying they're like bigger now. He has more listeners now. I don't know.
And maybe they are
going to say otherwise. I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thought. Is he probably wouldn't say anything else, but I would just imagine, just because, and maybe I'm biased because I've been in the space for a long time as a listener, and the quality of what I expect is very high. But for all the issues I've been just, since it changed, I've been hating it. It's been, I've never had a catalog of Joe Rogan's to go back to, right, and go through, because that's the one, if he releases one, I'm listening to it. But there's so much hassle through the Spotify stuff that I've never been this behind on my Joe Rogans before, and other people were kind of taking that place. And I imagine for me, who's that diehard of a fan of his, for me to have that, imagine somebody that's just kind of peripheral or was just getting into him and kind of thinking, maybe I'll give this guy a chance. But it's easy. It just pops up on my phone, on my Apple podcast app, or another big thing is YouTube, right? Like the fact, if he would have stayed his video podcast on YouTube, but all the audio would have went through Spotify, I feel like this would be a null point, because now there's that one easy way, but that doesn't get Spotify anything, right? Like now that pushes people away from their platform. So it's one of those things. But I mean, censorship is always going to be rearing its head. That's something that people have fought. Society has fought.
Probably.
No, for millennia, millennia, people haven't been around for millennia. You know what I'm saying? For thousands of years, censorship has been something that, for a long time, censorship has been something that we've battled, right? And it's not going away anytime soon. It just upsets me to see how far we've come, where society is. We have all this technology, all this crazy stuff, but something that is so cut and dry of what has censorship done over the years, right? There's hundreds and hundreds of historical context where you can see what happens when you censor. and the consequences that happen. And then we do it again and we see the same consequences. We see the same shit, right? And it's like,
we're the only animal that trips twice with the same rock.
100%. And not just twice, like 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. But it's just like at some point society has to realize that, where we invest enough. And I think that's where I see so much right now with people that are good-hearted trying so hard to erase the past right now. And I feel like that's where all those lessons, that's where all these historical lessons about the censorship, with you trying to censor the past, is not only it's two-folded, right? Like it blocks it out from all those learnings, but then also specifically about censorship, like the thing you're doing, if you would have, instead of trying to demonize the past and say, we don't need to look at this because it maybe disproves some of the things you're doing, now you just say, well, nobody can look at this, and there's no lessons to be had there, but there's a million lessons to be had in the past, right? That's how we move forward. That's how society grows, is to learn from their past mistakes. But I think when you try and just, tear down every statue, demonize every hero of the past, George Washington's evil and all this stuff, it brings you to a place where now you're just closing down your available inputs for information, right? And you're just you're really narrowing it to a place where bad things can happen. Historically, when you look at that, what happens following a society that really breaks down where they can get, what happens after they burn the books? Bad things, right? That is what every time in history, and you see it happening right now where people are burning the books. It looks different because we're in the 21st century. Burning the books looks a lot different than it did in the 1800s, the 1700s, the 1600s, but it's happening, right? And it's unfortunate. And I feel like the only place I was worried about this for years, right? And all through university, I was like, I could see this happening. I was like, who is saying this shit? Like, fucking, I graduated and I found podcasts. I'm like, oh, this is where everyone's saying it. This is the medium where everyone's saying the same thing. And I found it. And I felt so, and I've said this to many people, I think I learned more in 2 years after I graduated just from listening to lots of podcasts than I did in my 4-year degree. Like I learned so much more information and was so much better off for it that I almost, I wouldn't change. Like I said, that listener environment and what I learned there was so much more than I learned in school that I wouldn't change it for the world. I got so much out of that interpersonally, how to relate to people, how to, even running that dodgeball league, right? Like I learned a lot doing that too, in terms of business, than I learned in business school, right? Like, life is so much about what you take out of it and what you learn from it, right? You can could take 2 people, put them through the same course in university or the same classes through university, and they could come out with so much different knowledge just depending on what they took from that, where they, what extracurriculars they did, who they hung out with, who they partied with. As much as, the partying side of university is, kind of looked upon, frowned upon, looked down upon, it's important. And you learn a lot in that, right? Like I think some of the biggest things, you go out at night and you go, why the fuck did I do that? The next morning you're sitting there like, oh, and you learn from that, right? Those are those times where I'll never make that mistake again. Whereas if it wasn't maybe that explosive, you would take you a couple more times to learn that lesson. You have to trip over that rock a couple more times before it sunk in, right?
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with partying, especially in university. I don't know. I mean, I think it's more wrong to party when you're like older than when you're you're like a 20-year-old, when kind of you're supposed to party, as opposed to, I don't know, 30, 40 or 50, like age appropriately, I think.
Yeah. And it's the time to learn those lessons. So when you are, 40, 50 years old, you're not, puking all over a bar and passing out and, having a big cleanup fee for your taxi cab home in the morning, right? You're supposed to learn that at 20 so that when you are 30, 40, 50, you're not making those mistakes, right? But I think that's what happens.
I mean, everyone will have different opinions on that too.
For sure.
Everything.
Everyone has opinions on everything. And that's what I kind of love about having a podcast, is I can get those opinions out. And if they're wrong, I love when people come tell me. I love changing
If you like them, you embrace them. If you don't like them, then you kind of also embrace that, you learn more also about yourself.
For sure. Oh man. So then kind of dialing back we kind of skipped over it a little bit, but machine learning and trying to go down the rabbit hole that is machine learning and what that is. Did you find a job that you could apply those skills, or was that kind of just something as you were trying, like you said, deepen your skill set so that when you did find a job, you could maybe apply some of those factors to it?
So I did geophysics in undergrad and my master's also. Reason why I did it is because I've always been very curious. I always wanted to know why. Why, like, all right, I don't know, like, this plane is flying. I'm like, why?
Why?
I'm like, why? So I started in physics major. And but also my parents, obviously with good reason, were like, okay, well, I mean, that's great and all, but like you're gonna get a job or something, because the
Mhm.
mentality is, if you're not really brilliant all 4 years, I don't know, you have like limited options on what you can do with physics,
Right.
right? Unless you're like pretty brilliant, I think.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'll do geophysics, which is kind of like a hybrid between, I guess, academia and industry, right?
Mhm.
There was like the oil and gas industry and stuff. So I was like, all right, this is like, I can be nerdy and then, I don't know, have like an office job and
Yeah. Yeah.
my family proud and,
Uh-huh.
myself happy. And then ever since I started university, it's been going downhill, right? Literally since I started,
Yeah.
it's been going downhill. I'm
Yeah.
like, never had a chance to do an internship, never had like a summer job or anything. So then kind of like the year of my graduation, so 2018, no, 2019. Yeah, 2019. That's when it really kind of like took a hit, and there's like no jobs, no one's finding a job. And I'm like, okay, well, kind of have to like reinvent myself here a little.
Yeah.
I mean, not completely, because I have like my foundations, I have my way of thinking, I have
Mhm.
my work ethic, my
Your
interests.
values. Yeah.
I'm not doing anything because I'm telling to do it. I'm told to do it. I'm doing stuff because I like it.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'm gonna kind of reinvent or expand my skills. And I said, okay,
Yeah.
who's hiring right now, right? Because I mean, I kind of had my 6 years of learning what I wanted to, and now I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
now who's hiring? I need to make
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to make money really quick.
Uh-huh.
So obviously, machine learning is like booming. I don't know
Yeah.
if you haven't heard of it. I don't know. You probably will pretty soon, because I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
everyone's heard
If you haven't, and I think people have, I think even when you say people haven't heard of it, I think people have heard of it just under different words, right? Like AI, like automated intelligence, right? Machine learning is kind of one of the ways that we're trying to get to AI, right? And it's one of those things that has a lot of promise and has a lot of current day applications, right? It's changing industry after industry. Machine learning is just,
yeah.
oh, it's amazing.
It's weird. I mean, me like being in, I don't know, in science, like seeing how it's affecting every field. Like for example, in physics, where we get our, I guess their physical models, they're like driven from, I guess, principles, and
Yeah.
right. And then you see machine learning coming into like these fields, and it's like, okay, well, we're gonna take a complete different approach. We're gonna kind of bypass all the like principles that we've built on, and we're gonna use data, and then we're
Yeah.
gonna come up with things. It's kind of like, I've seen two types of people: the people that welcome it and kind of become maximalists and machine learning everything, and the people who just refuse to adapt and
Yeah.
kind of like use it as a skill. So I think I'm like somewhere in between. I think it's a tool that you should have as
Mhm.
a scientist. I think you shouldn't, in my opinion, you shouldn't be like maximalist, but it should be a tool near your belt. Like, I can do this, I can use this if I want to.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it, mainly because of jobs, and because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I like it. It's
Yeah. No, it's,
yeah,
it's one of those small intersections that you see where it's very, very lucrative right now, but it's also super interesting and super cutting edge and super, I don't know, like I feel like that's something I would dive into right now. Like if I had the chance of just, I kind of already set myself on a path of where I'm going, but it's one of those things where if I had an opportunity to dive into it, it's so interesting. That's why I love the Lex Friedman podcast, because that's very much what he's all about, AI and machine
yeah,
learning and
yeah,
robots and that kind of thing. But it's interesting to hear you talk about the two different types of people: the people that are very accepting of machine learning and what it's bringing, the people that have a lot of pushback.
yeah,
And I think very much in physics is where we're seeing the rubber hit the road on that. I think there's physicists for a long time have gone off of Einstein's theories and kind of had that as their building blocks to work off of. This is the platform, this is the sturdy base that we have, and then we expand all the work, all the string theory, all the stuff, all
yeah,
bases off of that. But there's some real logical jumps that needed to be made with what Einstein had done, right? And that's where all these things are coming off, and now all of this work that they're doing is not testable. And I think there's a lot of voices now coming up in the physics community that is saying, hey guys, I think you're on the wrong path. I think there's the fruits of what you could get out of the paths that you're on have all been picked, and we need to now, there hasn't been any huge breakthroughs. Yeah, there hasn't been any breakthroughs in 50 years, kind of with what that is. And now there's a big push to go back to where Einstein did that initial work. And a lot of what Einstein did was, like you said, working off natural phenomena, just pulling the data off of that and then creating your theories off of that, not inputting numbers and having fixed values and things in there to make it work.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so scary to them, is now people are taking this machine learning, which machine learning has no intent. All it is just build a program that can test things, right? And then give it as much data as you can, and it will test it and test it and test it. That's how they beat that, or that's how they built that program that built the chess player. You just give it the parameters of chess, machine learning. You play it against itself and play it against grandmasters, and it will continue better. It will learn. It's machine learning, right?
Yeah.
And now when you take that into the physics community and they say, oh shit, this is coming, obviously they're going to have pushback, because now if it starts to prove what a lot of these people are saying, right? Like Eric Weinstein, who's been saying this, we're on the wrong path, we need to make a big shift. We need to get back to the real basics if we're going to find the next levels, the next orchards, right? Everything's been picked. All the low hanging fruit's been picked here. We need to get to these new orchards. And I think that's a lot of fear for a lot of these scientists or physicists that have, spent 40 years of their life in academics and studying these theories. And that's everything that is to them. Right. And
I think that's because there's at least two main types of, people.
right.
Maybe there's more, but at least the main two is like the people who know a lot about one thing.
Yeah.
They kind of like go into that one thing, like, and just keep going. But you can ask them
blinders on. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, they learn about spoons, but then you ask them about a fork and what?
Yeah.
And
we're not talking about forks here. We're talking about spoons.
Yeah. And then there's people who kind of know a bit about everything. They might not be like field experts on everything, but you can kind of have a conversation about a lot more things about.
Right.
So I think that's kind of like the issue. Some people are not flexible enough. Some people are not willing to adapt, or kind of almost dinosaurs in a sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they don't adapt, and I don't know, kind of gonna go extinct if you don't.
Yeah. Because
the whole point is you gotta adapt and you gotta welcome the new things, but also don't become, I guess, a maximalist of that one thing. Don't forget about your other things, I think.
Yeah. And it's hard to blame people for that mindset, because it makes a lot of sense. Like I said, I was kind of telling you about those books that I read, that The Worm at the Core, and that talks about how our fear of death and our fear of our own mortality is at the core of everything we do and all our decision making. We just don't realize it. And
it's one of our two biggest fears, right? The dying and being made fun of.
Yeah, exactly. And taxes. That's the third one.
So if you don't know them, they can't scare you.
Yeah, fair enough. So what happens is people create, in order to stave off that fear, they create these narratives around them, and these stories of who they are, right? Like a lot of times for thousands of years, this was religion, right? And that was that thing, right? And if something was shown to them, right? Like when they found out that the sun doesn't revolve around the earth revolves around the sun, that was shattering everything that they believed in, everything they built about who they are. It was this core concept of a piece of who they are, right? And that was changing that. And that is scary. That is people demonize and push away, right? Yeah. And now religion has kind of fallen off, and now everyone has their own little thing that is, whatever that is, right? Sometimes that's somebody's social media following. Sometimes it's all these different things. But if it's really core to who you are and something questions that, right? Like if you had a physics idea that, or whatever it is, that rabbit hole, the spoons, right? Like you've been going after spoons for 40 years and you know everything there is to be about, and then somebody comes at you with something that rocks that base of who you are, that it's automatic that they're gonna have some pushback, because that questions everything they have about the world. It takes that's that armor that protects you against the scariness of everything that's out in the world. Is I know this to be 100% true, and I believe this, and that's what I believe, right? That is,
it becomes you.
And becomes you, right? And that's when people get that question, right? And I think for a lot of people, we see that as just tribalism and left versus right. That's their armor, right? That right-wing stuff is that their armor. When anything questions that's why they push back so hard. And the same thing on the left, right? And I think that's what you see is when you talk about generalists versus specialists, I think that's so important, because a lot of times you need those generalists, right? Like there may be somebody that, I'm trying to think of a non-pandemic example to use here, but it's tough. It's the only thing that keeps pumping into my head, but I guess I'll use that. I'm trying not to, but I'll use this. So at the start of the pandemic, they wanted experts, right? They need these experts. So they brought in these doctors and said, okay, you are the experts. What is the best way to stop this disease, right? Now they got the information for exactly what is the most maximal things we can do to protect every life. But you needed to bring in you need to bring in some experts or some generalists that have some other, okay, let's bring in some economists. Let's bring in some mental health experts. Let's bring, when you rabbit hole down one specialization, you can blind yourself to the other ones and you don't have the impact. Everything flows together. Everything has pieces of it. And that's why I think generalism is so much more powerful where, you might have a disease where there's somebody that specializes it, but there might be someone that can help you better, that can provide you better care because they have a better general knowledge of health as a whole and nutrition and all these things, right? Exercise. And they can specialize you more than somebody that specializes in that one disease because their specialization and all the years they had to dive into looking into this one disease has blinded them to all these other factors that mold into it, right?
And I mean, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with specialists because
no, exactly.
At the end of the day is kind of what helped us get here.
For right? Sure.
Without specialists, I mean, without like computer specialists, we don't know how to make a computer. I don't know how to make a computer.
100%. Yeah,
I'm with you. I don't even know how to make plastic. I don't. Yeah. So we need them, but I don't think it's wrong to be a specialist. I don't think it's better to be a generalist. It's just two types of people, and for me, being a generalist kind of has worked out better.
Mm-hmm. And maybe I can restate it more clearly. As I think I agree with you. I think we put specialists on such a pedestal and we kind of look down upon generalists. And I think they both need to be, and we need to find the value, right? I think that's, again, probably a bad example to use, but I think for so long women wanted rights and they wanted to be able to work and they wanted to do all these things, right? So we fought so hard to put that up on a pedestal that we really, not demonized, but we really devalued the role of, just a stay-at-home mom that raises kids and handles a household. I think, I think you can't have that as the only, and that is the, patriarchal way of looking at it, of what women should be. No, they should be able to do whatever they want. But
exactly. They should be whatever they want to be. I mean, not whatever they want to be. I mean, they're not doing any good to themselves or to anyone. Maybe not. But you can do whatever you want, I think.
Exactly. And I think in that, and I think they can be anything they want, but I think we have done a disservice. And I think there's a lot of societal, negative externalities that we don't realize by putting such a high standard on, and we put this pressure on women that they have to work, they have to do everything. You have to, have kids, have a career, have all this stuff. When if we put enough value, we don't have to take away any value from that. That is something that for some people, that's going to be what they want to strive for. But we also have to revalue all those traditional things, because I think for so long there's been this taboo of, if somebody's just a stay-at-home mom, that's something to look bad on. No, that's a hard-ass job. That's something that's really difficult to do. It has a lot of value, right? And I think it's just one of those things, right? Just using that as an example, kind of to throw it back to the generalists and specialists. I think it's not that we need to devalue the specialists. We just need to have more value in the generalists and have more of a broad understanding of the powers that come with being a generalist and having knowledge in all these different areas, because of how interconnected everything is, right? And it allows you to have a bit of a different mindset on things and come at problems a little bit of a different way, right? That's usually what's required when you have a problem that has been tried to solve. You need somebody to come at it from a real fucked up angle. Yeah, exactly. And that's usually what ends up, that getting that crack that you can get your hands in and mold it to what you need it to be. But, oh man, that's
definitely.
Oh man, no, that's good stuff. What else have we talked about? What else have we not caught up with? What have I missed in these last couple of years since I haven't seen you? You moved to BC. How's that?
Yeah, I moved to Vancouver.
How long ago was that?
It's about a year ago.
Oh yeah. Oh, good timing.
I think exactly a year ago. Maybe a year ago or something like that. It's actually a funny story. I mean, yeah, I think it's a funny story. So it was not like, I'm getting my years all mixed up. I have no concept of years or months.
Yeah.
I think it was 2018. No, fuck. What year is it? 2019.
Yeah.
It was September 2019. Well, summer of 2019. There was a music festival in Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
I went and I met a girl there.
Nice.
Started talking. And I just asked her if she was waiting for her friends. Like she was just kind of standing there.
She saw that smile. Don't lie.
I tried pretty hard, and then started talking, and then she had an accent. I said, "Hey, you're not from around here."
Yeah.
where you
Classic.
from? Where you from? She's like, Vancouver. And I'm like, what? No, this is Vancouver. She's like,
Yeah.
no. And then I started liking her and a lot, and
Mhm.
then kept talking. And then she was visiting back and forth. I was visiting here,
Yeah.
and then so this was all between September and December. And then that December is when I finished school in Edmonton. That's when I ended my lease and then moved to back to Calgary with my parents.
Hmm.
But I was still coming here. I was coming here like once a month or so, and
Hmm.
um, it was my birthday, January 10th, and then she went to Calgary for my birthday, and then
Hmm.
I came here with her. So like she flew to Calgary, and then I flew back with her here.
Hmm.
Then I went back in February, and my parents said, "Okay, what are you doing? Like you're just going back and forth. I mean, like you just kind of pick a place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you want to be there, just go there. Like not in a bad way, but they're kind of like realize where this was going. They're like, okay, it's kind of a serious relationship. They seem to be into each other. They kind of said, okay, what are you doing? You want to be there? Be there, right?
Yeah.
They were a little sad because they were excited to have me back home,
Mhm.
and I was a little excited too. But I don't know. I like it here a lot more. I mean, obviously, I'm with my girlfriend here, so yeah, I've been here for a year, loving it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, that's quite the timing. So how was that to have the pandemic come? You're in a new place. You're just getting settled in, probably. Hey.
I was just getting settled in. I remember January listening to Joe Rogan. He brought in a specialist or something, and
Yeah.
Joe asked him, "Oh, is this going to be part of our lives?" And the guy said, "Oh yeah, definitely. It's going to be a part of our lives for a long time." I was
Yeah.
sitting with her, and I was like, this guy's crazy." Like, obviously not.
Yeah.
A year later, he was right.
Yeah.
So it was good that we moved in together during
Mhm.
this time, because I think if we didn't, then I don't know if we would still be together, because
Right.
I don't know, it wouldn't make sense, I think.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
right? So it was really good, because not being able to, I mean, I didn't know anyone here, not being able to meet people because
Right.
you really can't.
Mhm.
Also, I didn't have like a life set here. I mean, I
Yeah.
was starting to like build my life. So having her here, living with her, was probably the best, because I had someone who I loved with me through this
Yeah.
hard time,
Yeah.
because it was a hard time.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
it was the best. It was probably the best. I couldn't, yeah, it was probably the best outcome.
Yeah, and it's funny how things work out like that, where you don't know, and it could have went a lot of different ways, right? It could have been, you guys could have got sick of each other in 3 weeks or something, but that's not how it works out. And that was something that I saw too at the start of the pandemic. Me and my girlfriend were still doing long distance; she was still finishing her degree, so she wasn't around. And I was, the first 6 weeks of the pandemic, I was, I'd go to work because we're an essential service. Kept working. We had to keep fuel going to the town and all that, and keep things kind of industry moving, but other than that, it was, go to work, come home, and even at work, we had it locked down. So like, I wasn't like usual, I'd be in the office and I go over to dispatch, talk to those guys, talk to some drivers, go to the shop, talk to the mechanics, you're all over the place and you're still interacting with people. Even that got shut down. And man, that was some dark times, like just
It's
my
tough.
own mental health.
It's
Fuck.
tough.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like it was getting down to there. And I knew that eventually she was going to move back here, but with the pandemic, everything, we didn't know, are the provinces going to lock down? Is she going to even be able to get down here? Right. Like, she couldn't just fly for a visit, though that was locked down, but she could drive, but she wasn't going to drive until she finished school. And
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
but then when she did get here, and just to have somebody there just to lean on, and just to see somebody, and like you say, have someone you love that, you can commiserate with, and, can just help you cook, and, go shopping, and just take off some of that, like, it was night and day, like how much of a difference that was to have somebody there to be on yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel so bad for people that have gone this last 9, 10 months, whatever it's been, 11 months. I don't even know at this point. Like you said, all sense of time's kind of out the window, but to do that on your own, like, I feel so bad for the people that have just been,
Yeah. Feel bad, and also like admire them, because it's tough, and
yeah, yeah,
it's
it
still
is. It's
here.
very
It's still here,
respectable.
and
Hey.
it's like I don't know how, but it's still here.
Yeah, exactly. Like yeah, it's one of those things where you don't envy them, but you envy
Resilience, I guess.
their
Yeah.
resilience and their strength, right? And that's been something. I have a good friend that went through some really hard stuff on top of the pandemic, right? Like, one of those things that not much is harder than what everyone's going through this pandemic, but then on top of that, and just to watch the strength that people can go through, not only a pandemic, but then something just hugely impactful in their life and traumatizing to go through that during this and to come out with so much strength on the other side. You realize the resiliency of people in general, right? And just what they can go through. It's like, holy fuck, like I'm sitting here feeling sorry for myself with what I'm going through, it's like, holy fuck, like that. It just gives you so much, what's the word? Like it gives you perspective, right? Perspective is so important. And I think that's what's another piece of what's good about having lots of podcasts and lots of different, people in your ears. It's just different perspectives, right? Like I found that was something that, in terms of diversity and learning people's points of view, I found that learning about other people's experiences, when you have somebody that has a podcast that comes from a completely different cultural background, a different race, a different, way that they've walked through the world and different things they've had to deal with, and to get that rate from the horse's mouth, very like not on any TV show, not with any spin on it, not trying to get anything. They're just trying to show you their experience with no strings attached. You learn so much more about that, and it's so much more impactful. And then when you do hear people talking about racism and stuff, it impacts you so much differently, because now you have actual no strings attached stories for those to cling on to. And now it starts to make sense. Whereas you'd never really heard it before. Someone would talk about racism in a way where you wouldn't really hear it, but then now you have more experience with it. And I feel like that is something where we haven't even seen the full extent of what podcasts, the power that they have, because I think it also has a power to really be a powerful tool, which is why I'm worried about the censorship stuff, because it's when just left to its own devices, when it doesn't have any spin like that, it has so much power to really help people. And if people really wanted to make a change, they should be supporting the freedom of what podcasts do, because that's what brings that stuff forward, right? Like that was something that was so interesting to me. Like
definitely.
And now that I've realized that, I'm often on the look for people, like maybe I don't know enough about this one subsection. Maybe let's try and find a podcast I like. Like I'm not going to listen to a podcast I don't like just to get that experience out of it. But you can always find when you're always going to find, like say you wanted to learn more about
there's so many people in this world. Someone will make the content that you're looking for.
Yeah. Like say I wanted to learn more about Mexican culture. I could find the Mexican version of me almost, right? Like maybe not to that specific level, but close enough that you probably could, right? Like that's what I'm saying. And one of them's going to have a podcast and you're going to connect, right? It might take a little bit of work and it might come over time, right? And a lot of times they'll come when you need them, right? Like, it's funny how the world works sometimes, when if you find you're lacking in one area, I find just the right podcast will just kind of work its way in. A certain guest on another podcast comes in with a worldview you never heard, right? Like Jordan Peterson, right? Like I think I didn't realize how much of his message I needed until I heard him say it, right? Like it was something that in an abstract way, I'd been feeling a lot of things he'd been talking about. I think that's why he has so much success, is he recognizes what specifically men in the culture of what it is and the attack on what it is that we are, right? And there's definitely some things we need to work on, but there's a lot of power and a lot of good things in it. And I feel like that was something that you don't realize until you hear it, and you hear him on someone like Joe Rogan for 3 hours, and it's like, man, that was like, I remember the reaction I had the first time Jordan Peterson was on Joe Rogan, and listened to that 3 hours, and just, I kept having to pause it. I was texting people like, man, you got to hear this. Like I was losing my mind, just being like, this is so powerful. Where has this been? Right. And just that feel, like I almost get goosebumps just thinking about like that impact. But that's happened multiple times where, it's been him, and then it's been someone else, and it's been someone else, where you just hear these truths that are almost inner truths that you've felt, but nobody's ever articulated. You've never heard it articulated. And then when you do, that feeling of hearing something that is so powerful to you, re-articulated back to you, so you don't feel like it's almost like you have this feeling, but you've never in your life been able to articulate it enough to somebody for them to understand it. You don't even try because you feel like you're looked at like a crazy person. And then somebody goes and gives you that language for it to happen. And it's that feeling alone. I haven't found like the right word to describe what that feeling is, but like, oh, it is amazing. I'm sure you felt it.
I felt the same. And whenever I try to tell people what I listen, that anyone said, I'm like, oh man, I'm really sorry. I can't really articulate it. I'm sorry. I can't really like give you the message the way I want to, but just listen to it.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. When you're trying, that's the biggest thing. That's what's so hard about passing off a podcast, because you want to describe to them why it's worth their time. Right. Because the first thing someone's going to say is 3 hours. Right. And the first thing I tell them is, well, put it on 1.5. Now it's only 2 hours and 20 minutes or whatever the math is. Right. Or if you can do 2 times, now it's only an hour and a half, but that's a lot to ask of somebody on the first one. But then the next thing is how can I find a small piece of this to digest to you that it's worth it? But it's like, just trust me, right? And I feel like that's something.
Just trust me, man.
Just trust me, right? And I feel like that's something that I feel like I want to build with this podcast, is just that trust in people where just trust me, like this Jordan Peterson guy, I know there's a lot of things in the media about what he is. A lot of it's bullshit. Just listen to him. Just try one podcast with him, listen to what he says. And if you think it's bullshit, fine.
Don't listen to it again.
But I just challenge you to try it once and just see, because so much of this, right? Like, I think that's what's so funny is when you see Joe Rogan dragged in the media for things, and it's like, oh, like this is so clear you've never listened to him in your life, because there's 1,500 episodes of 3 hours each of his most intimate. Over 1,500. He probably has closer to 2,000 because he has a whole bunch in like other areas, and he's been guest on other podcasts. He probably has like 2,000 episodes worth of 3-hour content out available on the internet. And
you can really get to know him if you listen to all of it.
Exactly. Right. Like, I've listened to like, maybe there's 200 or 300 I haven't listened to. So I probably listened to almost 1,500 myself of him, right? Like, that is an intimate level. And it's not just him at his best. It's him at his worst. It's him when he's younger and figuring things out. You can see the growth of him. You can see him, when he's high on mushrooms. You can see him when he's drunk. You can see him in all these different areas where he's not holding anything back, because there's nothing to hold back, right? And that's the lesson that I took, is that's what I want to do with this podcast, is just be open with people in all these different areas where I think I'm strong, where I think I'm weak, where I think I have room to improve, right? Hasn't really happened much yet, but I'm really looking forward to the point where somebody listens to this, sees an error in the way I'm looking at things, brings it to me, and then I can bring that back. Is like, hey, I talked about on this podcast with Gonzo, this one thing here, and I was really describing, I had to talk with somebody else and they showed me this other way of looking at it, and I really think I was wrong on that one. I love that. I love being wrong. I love have my mind changed, but it takes a lot to get it there because I'm so fucking stubborn.
Well, I don't know. I don't like being wrong at all.
No?
I don't like being wrong now. No, but I like learning. I mean, when you're wrong about something, it kind of sucks. I think, at least for me,
a little bit, yeah.
Learning from it, it's good. I think. I mean, it's like kind of like making mistakes. I hate making mistakes, but learning from them is what I like.
Yeah, I feel like I agree with you, and I think when it's a mistake, like I hate when I make mistakes. All right, when I mess up and I do something stupid that I know better, I hate it. But if I don't know better, right? If I'm really defending a point and I'm showing it one way, and I know why I think that way, and then someone brings new information that I didn't have, so there was no way it's not a mistake because you didn't have that information. So there was no way, there was no other alternative for you. That was the way. With the information that you had, the life experiences you have up until that point, it makes 100% sense why you would have that point of view at that time. But then when someone brings new information in, so if you can look at it that way, it's not an attack on anything that you've done in the past. It's not an attack on any of your mindsets. It's just new information. Now you can go forward with it, right? I think that's where some people really struggle with that, is they see everything as an attack on what they were. If it's not, being wrong in any sense, even if there's no fault to being wrong, right? And it makes a lot of sense, they still have that reaction. I think for me, it's just trying to train myself to always be in that mindset of just being wrong is not bad, as long as you're always trying your best and always doing your best with the information you have. When you get brought new information, you just add that in, you admit where you were weak and try and get better, because I think that's powerful. And to watch
like my girlfriend says, whenever I make something wrong or do something wrong, which is a lot of the times, I do something wrong and then I say, "Oh, I'm really sorry," and I'm just sucking up to her. I'm like, "I'm really sorry, baby. I'm really sorry." She said, "Don't be sorry, be better." that really hits home.
Yeah, that hits you right in the guts, hey?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's exactly what you want to hear. But it's good to have people around you that know what you need to hear in those times to make it really sink in. Because if you say, "Oh no, it's fine," then you don't really learn, and then you keep doing the same shit. I'm famous for that. Famous for that.
Yeah, that really stuck with me. Don't be sorry, be better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if you watched The Office or you've seen The Office.
Oh yeah.
I remember when Dwight, in one of the episodes, he says, one of the biggest lessons I learned from Michael or something like that is like, he said, "Dwight, don't be an idiot." And then he says, "When I'm about to do something, I ask myself, would an idiot do this?" And if the answer is yes, then I don't do it.
Oh, that show, hey?
Yeah.
Oh, so fucking great. I love that show. Oh man. Well, we're getting close to time. Both have to get off to work here. It's nice to kind of do a morning episode. I didn't know if I'd like this or not. It's kind of waking up early, getting a good run in, getting a tea in me, and starting off. I thought I'd be a little groggy, but I've been firing pretty good. I might have to do this more often, but maybe question I could ask. I mean, I have a lot of questions I want to ask you to wind it up, but I'm curious, what was it with Jordan Peterson, just because we have talked a bit about him, when you first heard him that kind of drew you in, you listened to more of him? What was it that resonated with you, and what are the things that you learned from him that you took forward?
So okay, I guess the question is what resonated with me and what are the things I brought
Yeah.
forward with me.
What did you learn from Jordan Peterson that maybe you were lacking in other areas with all the other media that you take in the day? That, because I found when I listened to Jordan, like it was some information that was coming through that I'd never heard anywhere else, and it was very, informative in that, and it just seemed like it
Um,
was.
I think more than anything is just taking in that unpopular opinion. I
Yeah.
think it really was like kind of so first I started because my dad read the book, and
Mhm.
then he came and he said, read this book. Kind of,
Yeah.
he never gives me a book, he never reads, he just said, read this book.
Mhm.
And it it was like the 12 rules for life.
Yeah.
It's almost like a motivational book, I think.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I took with me, just kind of like always like keep moving, always keep moving,
Yeah.
keep moving. Even if you're moving slow, just keep moving, because
Yeah.
I don't know, you look back a year from today, and then you're gonna be like that much further as a person,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And the other thing is also kind of I don't know, be skeptical of a lot of the ideas that you hear, because and be able to, or have the courage to challenge them.
Yeah.
Don't just like take anything just as is, kind of challenge
Yeah.
it and figure out why, I think.
For sure. Yeah. No, that's definitely something that I've seen too in that
And
piece
also that
about.
is, I also learned that it's not wrong to be a man.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
Not wrong
an
to be a
important
man.
thing.
Like being a gentleman is, there's nothing wrong with it.
Exactly. And I feel like that was something that I had learned from, Joe Rogan. That was one of the biggest things. He was less vocal about it and more did it with his actions, whereas Jordan Peterson very clearly articulated it in words, whereas Joe is more, show by his respect, right? Like nobody ever fucks with him or anything, but he's very compassionate, nice to everybody, right? Like minimal force, right? Like you need to be strong in the world, but minimally. You only use exactly what is necessary out of you. If you're a big strong guy and you go around bullying people, that's not strength. That's something else, and that's negative, right? But if you have that and know that you have that and know, right? And that's always something with me. I was never the most physically imposing person. I was kind of the fat kid growing up and all that, right? Like it
I
was
don't know.
not,
You're pretty physically imposing to me. You're tall, man.
yeah, well,
You're big.
fuck.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, maybe I had that, but in my own head, I was never that. But my mind, I feel like my mind was my weapon, right? I was never a fight. I've never been in a fight in my life. I'm a fucking teddy bear, like even through hockey, I like to hit people, but always only within the confines of the rules. I never got in
Yeah.
fights. I never, never got kicked out of any games, never anything. It was always, if it was good, clean, like within the rules of hockey hitting, I love the violence of that. That was something that really got me going. I probably like that more than the rest of what hockey was, you know what I mean? But now I forgot kind of where I was going with that. Oh, but my mind was my weapon and I always use that. But I think when I was younger, I thought I had an idea of that minimal force, right? It was kind of, oh, I'm a nice person. I'm really nice to everybody, right? But then when you cross me, it was burn the fields, fucking let's go, fucking,
Yeah,
I'm going to say the
yeah. No,
worst shit,
I remember him saying that. I remember him saying that.
right? Like,
Like if you're gonna cross me, like just be ready, because I have a bunch of facts. I've done my research pretty much.
yeah, and that was something that I didn't realize the negative side of that. I think that was kind of my defense mechanism, and I always thought, I thought I was using it appropriately, but I wasn't. It was just times where I'd be joking with buddies, and they'd say something that isn't even that bad. Is less bad than things I said, but it just tweaked something inside me, something that I was very self conscious about, and then I'd be on the attack, right? And I was just using that, and I was walking through the world, and then just understanding that now, and just realizing like, oh, with that power, it comes responsibility. You have to be gracious with that. And you have to be for as sharp as that weapon gets for how you can use it for bad, you have to be, it needs to be in that sheath that much more. You have to never use it unless you need to use it. And I feel like that was such a powerful thing. And then just the self accountability and keeping the effort going, like, I feel like that message, it was clear and forward when Jordan Peterson put out, but I feel like that was a message that I just got from podcasting in general. Every podcast I listen to about sticking with it, because usually a podcaster has some sort of other industry, right? Like I said, like so many of them were stand-up comics, and every stand-up comic just said, if you want to get into stand-up comedy, it's going to suck and it's going to be a terrible grind. You're going to feel awful about yourself a lot of times, but you just have to keep at it. And if you keep at it, you will get better at it and you will do it. Right. And then you just hear Olympic skiers, just, yeah, no, I saw it and I just kept at it, or authors, I wrote books and I just kept at it and I kept at it. And it was just that undercurrent of every single podcast and every single guest that was successful and that I would look up to had that same message of just, if you just keep that forward momentum and the power of that.
Yeah. And I don't know what it is. I mean, he always says that you kind of have to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
much like achieving and things like that. I don't know what it is about achieving that gets us going, because
Yeah.
I mean, we're all gonna die, right?
Yeah.
Everyone dies. Like, yeah, you achieved a lot, but kind of what's the point? But it's what kept you alive, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And it's that forward progress. And I mean, I think that is the question itself, right? If at the end it is all meaningless if you get down to the minutia of it, especially when you expand it to just how long the universe has been around and how long it's going to be after we're gone, and just what a small blip humanity is, right? And then
Yeah.
if you look at the earth, it's just one speck on a speck on a speck in all this grandiosity, right? And it says you don't have a point, but finding a point and finding that inner value, because there isn't one, it has to come from within to keep that drive going forward, right? And then there's lots of people that say, there's ideas about collective consciousness of, all beings within the universe all have kind of connected consciousness that's all moving towards progress, and that's why that drive is innate, not in just people and animals and in plants and in all these things, right? In systems, in oceans, like there's some sort of undercurrent within all that everything moves, right? There's all these theories around it, but it's that power of just tapping into that and finding that within yourself of what is that drives you and that's going to keep that accountability. What makes that fire probably, right? Like for lots of people, it's achievement, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
Whatever that achievement is, that's what drives you forward. But then same thing with Jordan Peterson was kind of the self-accountability aspect of it, of just in whatever situation, whatever the consequences, even if it is extremely unfair, right? You got fucked over, everyone's out to get you. Even if that all is true, you have to go within that and find where that piece of self-accountability is within that, and focus on that. Don't focus on all these other people, what they did to you and all that. Learn from it. Don't discount it completely. Learn from it, but you have to find the piece where it was your fault, right? And you can always invent that, even if you got to make a bit of a stretch, even if the situation, right, like the pandemic, not really anybody's fault, but you need to stretch and find your own self-accountability of, for me to navigate this, I need to work on my own health, right? I need to have my immune system at the top of the top, right? That's a way to take self-accountability on something that was not your fault, and find ways that, what can I do, right? Instead of just depending on everybody else to fix these problems for you. If you go into every situation trying to find, what can I do for it? What can I bring forward out of this? You're going to be in a lot better spot at the end of the day, right? At the end of a couple of years, you're going to be a lot further along the path if you've always done that. And that is so powerful. And I feel like it's so simple and seems so obvious to people, but until you hear somebody,
so hard to implement.
It's so hard to implement, and it's so hard to understand the value. I feel like for myself, and maybe this is just me putting too much of myself out there, but it was always something where implementation, I could implement things, but I had to really believe in them. And I'm such a stubborn person. It takes a lot for me to really take that in. Whereas, a lot of the things that Jordan Peterson was saying, it's not really things that I haven't heard before, but I've never been convinced like that. And that's what he's going. His whole thing is the power of storytelling, the way he orates, the way he brings us all together and weaves it into a narrative that really makes it connect with you. Now that information sunk in, and now I've made action, like say, all the things that Jordan Peterson was saying, I'd heard them all before, but until he said them in that order, with that gravitas, with that information, it didn't sink in and didn't create actionable change. And that's the power, right, of people. And that's a skill that he developed over years of, teaching and being a professor and researching and all that stuff, and finding the right ways and researching into religion and these oral traditions and what that is and where that power comes from. And then he assembled it all. And thank God, what my mind goes to is now he has the skill. He could use it for whatever he wants. And it seems like he's trying to use it for good and trying to help people. But thank God, because if he would have taken that skill and had nefarious reasons and just wanted to make money with it, or just wanted to, grow his own fame, and it doesn't seem like he's doing that. And he seems like he's very much struggling with the fame that he does have, right? And he's had his own issues in that, which is very much to be expected. But with people like that, with people like Joe Rogan, it's just like, man, it gives me a lot of hope going forward that is more prevalent than we'd think. Of all these people achieve these great skills of oration and things. And it seems like the people that I look up to anyways, the Petersons, the Rogans, the Friedmans, they all have that same goodness in them, that they want to help people and they want to bring positivity in the world. They want to bring compassion and love, and they all have that. And it's like, man, because you see what happens when one charismatic person in history, especially in times of disarray like this, you can take that and you can whip people into a frenzy. I mean, look at the States contagious right now. It's contagious. And you look what happens when one guy with a bit of charisma whips up a frenzy, what it can create. It's very dangerous. And for the one Donald Trump in the world, there's all these Joe Rogans, and that's what I got to hang my hat on and keep going to because it's very easy to get a little bit nihilistic and just, see the bad in the world. And I feel like, unfortunately, that's what a lot of people, there's a lot of money to be made in the bad in the world and the clicks that you can get off of fear and scary things. So it's all shoved in front of you. But if you can find a way to cut that noise out and just have a real look at the world and see what it is, it's a lot more positive than people would think, right?
I agree with you. I agree.
It's awesome. And I think podcasting is just one of those areas where, podcasts are 95% positive because, it's usually people that aren't just in it to try and make money off it, right? Like, it's just not if there's other places to go if that was your goal, and they usually quit and aren't there after 3 months anyway. So it kind of has a natural cycle of keeping that positivity, and it funnels to the top, and that's where you're going into it, right? And that's why I tell people, try and get into a podcast. It's probably going to take some time. You have to find the right one, but if you do, it's going to bring a lot more positivity.
So we have to take one podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
One podcast, one episode, like maybe 1 hour, and then you're going to be like, different.
That's all it is, right? And I'm sure there's people out there that it's just not for them, and the medium itself is just not. They don't, whatever it's of attention span or something else in their life that brought them to the point where it just doesn't connect with them. But even if that is that person, there's still. And maybe that person's just not someone that's going to listen to podcasts all the time, but I'm guaranteed there's some episodes out there, some specific ones where they would be glued to that screen or their ears glued to that phone for 3 hours and they'd be fine with it, right? There's certain podcasts out there for everybody. And it's just, about finding the right puzzle piece that matches that person that will give them that knowledge, right? And there's so much that can come out of it. I'm just going to keep ringing this bell that, hey, podcasts are where it's at. Everyone needs to get there. Everyone needs to try them out. And eventually, hopefully that'll build up and everyone else doing it. That's exactly what at the end of the day, everyone's after, right? They just want myself, I just want the world to be a better place, right? I think it's a hard goal, and I think it's something that is not easily achievable, but if everybody just tries a little bit to do that, it's only going to be a positive effect in the long run. So no, anything we missed? I know you got to get to work here soon. I'll give you a little bit of time. I know you got a long commute from the desk to the other desk there to get set up, but
I actually think I'm going to be late.
Oh, fuck. Well, hey,
man.
Well, you can blame me. They'll hear the podcast and they'll know.
Yeah, no, it's actually pretty funny. I mean, you can see my bed. I made my bed.
Oh, bed. Beautiful. Nice kitty on there.
Got to work.
Yeah. Long commute, hey? That's it's been funny to see so many people working from home, because throughout this whole thing, I haven't worked from home maybe like 1 or 2 days. Just like if I was, just I feel like there's a lot of paranoia too. You get a little scratchy throat. Okay, I'm staying home. But other than that, I've been at work every day. So just hearing this thing from people, I don't think I fully understand what everyone's going through, just because I haven't been in that. I haven't been locked in the house.
I definitely envy you a little. I mean, I was home for all of 2020. Not kidding, not exaggerating. Day one, all of 2020, I've been at home.
Oh.
I have been at home, and then got a job end of 2020. And then I thought, okay, well, I'll get to leave now. No, I'm still here. So I definitely, I'm a little jealous.
Yeah, and it's funny because
it is what it is.
And it's funny because I find the other way. I'm feeling jealous a little bit every time, right? And I know it's silly because I know that they would trade places with me in an instant to get a little bit out of the house. But, I'm getting jealous of people. Fuck, you get to be home all the time. I haven't, it's been status quo going to work. Everyone.
It'd be good if you had the option.
Right. If I had the option, right. And that's the other thing too, of just at the start, when you're seeing all these people just, I've crushed so many series on Netflix and I've been drinking every night. I'm just sitting there like, well, fuck, I've been just kind of going to work and doing the same thing. Work's gotten harder. It's been just, we've been navigating how to handle this pandemic and keep food on the table and keep people busy and keep people in jobs. Like, it's been more stressful than ever. It was like when the pandemic hit, sorry. For some people, it turned the knob way down and things kind of got scaled down, and then for other people it got scaled right up, right? Like healthcare workers, for all these people. And it's such a weird dynamic to have, a huge split of people have completely different experiences with it. And there's going to be a little bit of jealousy both ways, but it's just how everyone has to do it. Whatever your circumstances, it's about that human ingenuity and just overcoming whatever's put in front of you. Doesn't matter what it is, you're going to get through it if you keep moving, right? Like you say, keep that forward momentum.
Keep moving.
You'll get through it.
Even if you're walking, just keep moving.
Yeah, even if you're fucking crawling.
Just keep moving.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, I think that's probably I think if I go any further than that, lots of times we have a nice place to end it like that. I keep talking and I ruin it. So I think that's beautiful. Anything you want to promote? Anything people want to know about you, Gonzo? Anything they need to? get to the people?
Well, I mean, I guess if you want to connect with me, connect with me. I have LinkedIn, I have Instagram, and my Instagram you can see more of my fun side, I guess. My music festival side is a different person, I think.
Well, hey, and look at that. We got so much more to talk about next time. Like I said, hopefully next time we do this, we'll be in person. But if not, we'll do this again because this is pretty fun. It's always nice to reconnect and have a good catch up bullshit session. And I learned a lot.
It was nice to do it in the morning too.
Yeah, it was. I actually really liked this. I was a little skeptical.
It woke me up in a good way.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited to go to work now. I'll just be buzzing. A couple of weeks from now, people will be like, man, I wonder what day that was because he was hopping a couple of those days. So maybe they'll be able to tell.
And no, that's about it. Just I just want to say it's really nice to see you. Really nice to talk to you.
Yeah, nice to see you too.
You're looking really good. I don't know why, but you're looking really good. Whatever.
Thanks, brother.
Keep it up for sure. And awesome. Good luck. Thanks for making all these podcasts. And just keep it up. Keep walking.
Awesome. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. All right. Another episode in the books, 45, almost at 50 episodes already. I can't believe how quickly the time is going, and feels like with all this COVID stuff, things are kind of on pause, and just to have proof every week of the passing time is something in itself. 45 episodes, that's quite an accomplishment. I know it's hard for me to look back and give myself some pats on the back for what I have done, but the payment for me is just it's getting to record these interviews every week. I enjoy it so much. I have so much fun, and I wouldn't be able to do it if you guys weren't listening. So thank you guys so much for giving me your time. I appreciate it a lot. And then also hearing from you guys, the feedback, makes it all worth it. Sometimes it gets frustrating with work and trying to do this and make it good for you guys. And then you get that one person reaching out and say, hey, I really enjoyed that episode. Like, I like this part, and it just makes it all worth it. So thank you guys so much for your feedback, and love it all the time. Wherever it comes, I'm always down to talk. If you can tell from listening to one or two episodes, I could talk forever and talk about anything with anybody. So reach out. I love conversation. Let's make it happen. And please tell a friend, and I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you guys next week.